my notes. I got things ready for my playback. Yes, I think I'm ready. Okay, I'll begin in a second. Oh shit. Be right back. There we are. This should be good. Luckily, they can't hear me. Can they hear me? Let me just check. Hello? I wonder what the lag's like. "30 seconds of lag." Okay, anyway. Let's begin. Hello again. Yes, so finally, after talking about it for like literally years, I'm going to talk about how I got here in terms of education. I'm very happy with the title of this, Imperfect, my imperfect education, because it's imperfect in the sense that it's started in the past and it's still continuing, and because, well, it's not the conventional route that you take in your education journey. There is often a clear endpoint, usually at the age of 21, when you progress into the working world. And so I think it's important to talk about this because when we're in school, we don't really get told about alternative routes. It's more like an assembly line, sort of building students for the future, for like very specific, almost like you're in a factory. Teachers are like those mechanical machines and just like build a student, off you go, next, build, go. So yeah, you don't really get told about the alternative routes. And massive hair flip. God damn this hair. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for that. Oh, there's a PR visa requiring some sort of ad under this video for when someone is watching. How appropriate. And thank you. Anyway, as I was going on about, the educational system, you don't really get told about alternative systems, alternative routes to get into your adult life. For example, you might know about, you do GCSEs, you do A levels, you go to university, you get a job, and about 40, 50 years later, you retire. But there's alternatives, as you probably know. You know what BTECs are, apprenticeships. What else is there? Just not really doing any of that and just going into um, work without actually getting any sort of further qualification. So this is my journey so far. Um, I was always into science and maths from like primary school. I was in the lowest sets for everything in primary school, but maths was the one that I was top of the class, but top of sort of like king of the retards. And that's what my position was. And because English is sort of my second language, I learnt about it when I get to school and when I started interacting with other children and staff members and teachers and such. That's when I started learning about English. So my English was always the second language that I learned, but because I didn't learn Punjabi to the level that like GCSE official language, I was only talking Punjabi with my parents and family, so I never got like a proper training of that. So both my languages are quite crap. So yeah, I was terrible at English. Science, I was okay. Um, then what happened? Oh yes, no SATs maths. I did okay and got into set two of four, I think it was, for the first 2 years of secondary school. Um, I was better than average, I'd say, for maths. English, still rubbish throughout. Um, there was a test in year seven to find out which science sets you go into. I didn't know what the states were, um, and I didn't really try hard because I was like, well, this doesn't change anything because it doesn't affect my GCSEs. It's not going to affect later years. It surely shouldn't matter, but it did matter, and it taught me a lesson about every exam, test, whatever it is, matters, no matter what you think of it. Yeah, so I feel I messed up that science exam, and I got sent when we were finally divided into sets for sciences. I went straight to the bottom at set four, which was rather embarrassing. Then um, I was also, because I didn't try as hard, I didn't like fully utilize my potential. I was still like the better, maybe the second best in that class. And so at the end of the year, I moved up to set three. And then through year eight, I was in set three. I think set nine? Yes, in set nine we were. Then we chose GCSEs. I also did well in history, um, surprisingly well. My teacher was great. Um, and then what happened was we had to choose GCSEs, and everyone wanted to do business for some reason because I think because we didn't understand what business was, we assumed that doing a GCSE in business will lead us to getting more money in the future, which we got told during our first lesson of business that that's not true. But anyway, business was a like two GCSEs, a double, so it counted for two. Maths was like standard. English was standard. We had to do at least a single science. We could do double science or triple science, so that would be biology, chemistry, physics. I was really interested in the sciences, so that was the obvious choice. The school that I went to was known for languages, so you could have learned French, Spanish, Punjabi, Gujarati. I think that was it. I think German was there. Um, yeah, so you could choose in any one of those five languages. And I'm so bad at languages, I tried to get out of that. Um, they selected me to do this sort of additional course called ASDAN, where you build up like communication skills, research skills, presenting skills, um, and that could be in place of a GCSE. So I thought, okay, let's get rid of the language and let's do the ASDAN thing. We had to do RS, that was compulsory. I did not like that. No one liked that. Or very few people liked that. Our teacher was, how do I describe her? A ball breaker. Um, so I did that. That was, oh, I really wanted to do history, but family members was like, why you want to do history? What job you gonna get with that? And it's like, I feel like a lot of kids get put off like the vocational sort of humanities subject in place of engineering, science, indeed all the STEM subjects, um, instead of following their passion of whatever it be. So religious studies, English, the humanities generally, music, art. Um, yeah, so I was not allowed, or I was encouraged to leave out history and do the businesses and sciences and so on. And I did pretty okay in everything except for the one thing that mattered. I didn't do well in my English language. English literature, fine, that was good. English language, on the other hand, not so good. So when I got to sixth form college, I had to reset or redo the English language GCSE. And I went from D's, grade D's, I mean. Am I showing my age by saying grade D instead of saying these numbers like, what is it, 6 or 7? Um, anyway, so we got, yeah, I weirdly got there, and suddenly in the first one, I got an A. It was an essay on Animal Farm by George Orwell. That was amazing. It really got me interested a little bit on English, and I felt less useless. Um, and weirdly, if you start good, first impressions are so important because after that, everyone just assumed that I was great at English because I started off so well. My maths wasn't good. My ability to understand algebra was crap. Physics, again, I just didn't, for some reason, it didn't go in. I found it really hard to understand the abstract nature of what was going on. Then I got to electronics. That was the other A level I was taking. I didn't initially want to do these A levels. I was expecting to do IT and economics or business or something like that. Because again, parents was like, well, not parents, but extended family was like, do something that's going to help you get a job. IT's everywhere. Might as well do a level in IT. That gets you a job. That gets you money. Something bullshit like that. And so I listened, but luckily because thank God I failed my English GCSE language, that I wasn't allowed to do some of those subjects because they required us grade C in English, and so I had to do stuff that didn't require a high level of English. So maths, You don't need English to that extent. Physics let me in, and electronics, which I didn't want to do. Well, I didn't plan on doing it. When I went to the person in charge of physics, he was like, "Oh, I see you're quite good at maths from your GCSEs, and you want to do physics. You know, electronics is quite similar. I think you'll be really well. You'll be, you'll do great." And he signed me up. He persuaded me, and I did not know what I was getting into, and it turned out it was amazing. It was so much fun. I started off well and kept at it. It was good. It was fun. Um, and then 2 years passed. I'm not doing well in English or physics, but for some reason I quite like English and physics and electronics. I passed my English like much easily, but I don't know what to do. So instead, I thought about taking a year out just to sort of find myself. A few of my friends decided to do the same thing, um, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought, oh, maybe I can just redo some exams. So for that year, I can just like get slightly better grades and therefore have a greater variety of universities to choose from. My parents were not like happy with the idea of taking a gap year, wasting a year. But you're getting older. Why are you wasting a year? You'll never have this time. You're going to be so far behind your pupils, I mean, your peers. Why are you wasting your fucking life, you retard? I mean, I'm exaggerating for like dramatic effect. Um, so a year passed. Okay, I'm not going to tell you exactly what happened in this year because we'll call it the dark years. I will come back to it in a later video. But towards the end of this gap year, I learned about something called access to engineering. Access to engineering and employability was its full name. And it was in Nottingham, quite close. And so I decided, because this could replace A levels in English. I mean, not in English, in engineering, maths, physics, and they had study skills, which was sort of research based and communications based. I thought it was a good idea to do. Obviously, I couldn't tell my parents that I was going to take another gap year. They'd fucking kill me. Um, but I wasn't the only one who was doing this. There was other people I knew who was taking an additional gap year, but doing something else like working and doing other A levels and stuff. Excuse me. And at first, I was so ashamed of doing this engineering course. The reason I chose to do engineering, I was crap at math. Crap at physics at A level, and a friend of mine was doing electrical electronic engineering, and because I like electronics, it was an A level that was very familiar with me. Because there was other A level, there's other degree courses that are just so alien to me that I couldn't connect with. And also because it was my friend, like the whole course seemed much more friendly, less intimidating, because it felt like I had a way in. And that's why I chose the access to engineering. And I went there day one, ashamed. I just wanted to get this year over with, and it was okay. Um, for some reason, we spent the first week being taught by an ex-policeman. I'm not sure why, but he was temporary. I think I think it was because the actual teacher we were supposed to have, in their contract, they were supposed to start a week later. Fine. He was fucking amazing. Like, the best teacher, or like top three teacher that I've ever had. Honestly, funny, engaging, like interesting in the way that he taught. He was so clear. It was perfect. And the class, because it was an access to engineering course, which is similar to like foundation year at university. If you ever do, or if you want another way, it's like doing maths, physics, and applied physics in like um, A level. It was sort of like that. And we started that. And another thing, on the first exam, or whatever it was, I did very well, to the point where, like, it happened again. People noticed and they assumed that I would be great at everything, and then that sort of continued. They wrongly assumed, well, maybe not wrongly, but they just thought I was better than I actually was. And I don't know, I felt like a bit of an imposter. They were amazing as well. Like, I think the entire class did very well. I think everyone went to university because we get like an award at the end, and that's a qualification that allows us to get to university. I remember really liking the teacher was a physicist, and I really liked physics, but I also felt that I wasn't good enough. And these moments kept happening again. I wrote like a draft UCAS personal statement the year before, and I just updated it and I wrote something new. Um, and because I sort of submitted that sort of early-ish, people were like, wow, you did that again. They were wrongly assuming how great I was. I wasn't. Although my ego might have gotten inflated during our calculus exam. Like, that's the exam that universities care about. If you can understand calculus, you'll be fine at university level. But when we were doing it, I did my answers, finish it, and the next day we asked the marker to mark immediately, like right in front of us while we were in a lesson, which is odd, but because this is the exam that makes or breaks us, the marker was just marking in the room, and we were just eagerly looking while we were trying to do our own work. Um, and there was two piles. One pile for who needed to resit, i.e. failed, and then people who passed. And there was just one, people would, the marker would just put one paper in one pile, keep piling until the class was almost done. He put one on the other side. Shit. It was mine. And then he kept putting the other ones on one side. And he said, these are the people who's passed, and these are the people who didn't pass. And then he picked up one paper, and he said, this is the pile of people who won. And it was my paper, and everyone else had failed. That was incredible. I don't think I've ever been in that sort of situation. Anyway, enough flexing my ego and my. Anyway, I was shit at maths regardless. Um, and so I went to university. I really wanted to do physics over that year. Oh, and over the summer I joined a cult accidentally. And a future video. Um, yeah, and so I went to university. and I did electronics and electrical electronic engineering, and I did first year. It went sort of okay. Yeah, actually, yeah, I got into second year. I can't complain. Second year, I the feelings of wanting to do physics swelled up again. It swelled up in the first year, but I was like, maybe not. I don't think it's possible to change. I don't know about the progress, and I don't have to spend 9 grand with me to change course and redo that first year. And I've already taken 2 gap years. If I take another year wasted to then start a new degree, that's 3 years. Like, I'm way too old. I'm, let's see, I would have been 20, 21. That's so old. What a stupid cunt I was. That's not old. But for some reason, because I'm always been surrounded by people my own age, in school, in college, at university, well, not university, but the idea of taking another year out or redoing a year, no, no, that's one step too far. So I didn't do that in first year. I came close. I went to my tutor with the express uh, to say that I wanted to change my course, but he started talking about my progress, and I didn't want to let him down because I feel like it's kind of rude to go up to your tutor and say, I want to change course. Because it's like you wrote an entire personal statement about why you like this course. What are you doing? Um, and so, yeah, I stuck with it in first year. Second year, my mental health, like, took a beating. I was inside my room for 3 weeks, almost straight, without communicating to anyone except for like just going to the shops and like the person at the checkout, and when they say hi you just say hi and you say thanks and no, I don't have a club card with me, that sort of shit. And that was probably the bleakest year of my life, and I didn't do well in that year. I said that I wanted to change my course finally, and I couldn't because it's second year. That meant I would have had to pay for 2 years. That's 18 grand. I don't have that sort of money. But I found out that the student finance give you a gift year. So if I did change my course in the first year, I wouldn't have had to pay anything. That's so frustrating to know. I'm so annoyed that they keep it hidden. They don't mention this. It's not easily accessible information. So I had to spend that extra gift year redoing my second year and back at it. Year two, I can't back out. This is it. There's no more redos, then no more gifts. So putting that much pressure on myself wrecked me continue. Oh my god, I screwed myself over because now I was a year behind the people I met in first year. I knew no one. I was almost, I think, even more alone than I was in the previous year. And that sort of made it quite difficult. I was seeing a counselor at the university. That sort of helped me a little bit, and I got through the new second year. Um, oh, one like additional part of complexity is that during when I did my first second year, it was like the old version. When I had to do my second one, it was all rebooted and it was all sort of packaged differently because they have to update the course to make it up to date and competitive. So yeah, and after that new second year, I did a year in industry. In I was a test engineer. It was pretty weird. I've never had a job, like not a proper job, um, and it was such an eye opener of how it's like. 40 hours a week. Originally, I had to wake up at 4 in the morning and work until 2 in the afternoon. It was hell. And then later, they trans. Somebody was leaving the evening shift and or the afternoon shift as they call it, and I had been brought in. A part of my contract was we'll train you in the morning, and then after a while you're transferring to the afternoon shift. And I was like, okay. I didn't know what it meant because, well, I knew what it meant, but I didn't know what I was in for because I've never had a job in my life. Undergrads are so desperate because it turns out in order for you to get a job, you need experience. In order to get experience, you need a job. How the fuck does that work? So undergrad. Oh, one dickish thing that I did was when they asked for money, like instead of asking, they asked me how much I wanted, how much I expected this position to give me. I went thousands of pounds above like the level of expectability, like huge. Like I shouldn't have asked for that. And so they were like, no, I said the amount of money, and I said, is that too much? And he was like, yeah. I don't know. I'll talk to HR and we'll get back to you. And so when they phoned me back, they said they sort of went £1,000, a few £1,000s less, but it was still more than average because every single time when you make an offer, they will take a little bit off. And so I was still getting more than I expected. So yeah, that's a tip for you. And so I was a test engineer. I was working on PCBs. We were manufacturing PCBs and electronic PCBs, and I had to test, I had to write code, and I had to check the bill of components, making sure we were buying the right components that were acceptable and within the tolerance that we desired. And that was pretty good. Um, Immediately after that, I got another job working, like my my test engineering job started from June till next June, and that was fine. But that meant that 1 year later, I finished in June, but then I've got July, August, September until university started. So why not get another job? I was like, be productive, get some experience. And in this case, it was just like money is money. So I got another job with Uniterms, and I had to work pretty much um, the one day before my course started again. I was still there. Um, but when I was working as a test engineer, I found out that I really didn't want to do this. And like this 40 hours for the rest of your fucking life, I don't want to do this. I just can't do that. Wasting my life on something that didn't like sit well with me. I still love physics. I still like elements of this, but a test engineer is not for me. It was a bit too corporate. I wanted to go into research, work at a university, that sort of thing. Also, I was beginning to open myself up to other things like literature. Like I knew since I was a kid, science, technology, space, all these geeky stuff. But then, as I grow up, and as you grow up, you realize that you start experimenting with other things. Politics got into that. Literature got into that, sort of. I was just expanding myself, becoming a little bit more hands-on with DIY and stuff. And one night when I was coming back from work, I think it was 11 o'clock at night, nearly. Um, I just no, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I was like, right, I don't care what it costs. I'm going to change physics. Fuck what anyone tells me. I'm going to do this. And you'll be surprised how, when you got that sort of attitude, doors open. And I went and spoke to people, and they were like, "You don't have funding," and I was like, "I'll find funding. I'll make this happen." And they were like, "Okay, um, sign here." Off you go. And then I had to prove that I had the capacity to learn. So I had to get a physics interview and an open day, which was horrendous, but I've got another video on that. I had to have an interview, and the interview was fine. I was expecting them to ask stuff, hard questions, but it just felt so natural. And there was a test, which was more difficult than I thought it was going to be, because in that year of industry, I didn't do any work. I was like, I'm learning like the practical side, but I forgot about the theoretical side, which was a mistake that I hope that if you're watching this and you're about to do industrial placement or some sort of placement, don't forget the content you learned last year. You'll need it for completing your degree. And I flopped that exam. And this was me saying I want to go into physics first year. Because I knew I could do a foundation year, but I didn't want to spend even more time. Like, I wouldn't have minded because I knew that I wasn't up to the standard of university physics for the first year. And it was quite difficult to accept that I messed up the exam. But the people were very nice. There's loads of online YouTube videos of the physics department, and they're very nice, and the staff are very nice and supportive and open, and you can chat to them. It boggles the mind. Like, students think that academics or staff members, you sort of avoid them. You only want to talk to your peers because they're like, well, my friends won't shout at me, they won't talk down to me. But this is the honest fact: staff won't talk to you like that. They will be honest, open, nice, and give you the best advice. And they want you to succeed. They want to help you. And yeah. So they were like, listen, I know you want to do physics. Maybe look into the foundation here. And I kind of was smiling on the inside because I thought there's people at university, students, who are 20, 30, 40 years old. I had some maths lectures with a 53-year-old, I believe. So I was like, well, I'm only in my early 20s. Does 1 year really matter? And I completely like, fuck what my parents think. I'm doing this. It's what I want. It's what I love. it's all I know, and it's all I want to know. And so I went to the foundation team, and I was like, I want to do this. And they were like, yeah, okay, you can do it. It's a bit peculiar. Are you sure you don't want to finish your engineering degree and just get on with that? And I was like, no, I don't want. Well, no, because it leads to a future that I don't want to experience. For like, university is important. If there's something you want to do, do it. Because I don't know, it's like the butterfly effect. Small changes in the early parts will have huge ripples in later years. So the course you do, the societies you join, to some extent, I mean, the experiences you have, the people you talk to, will shape you for your adult life. So take advantage of all the societies and everything university has to offer. And university has a lot to offer. Um, yeah, so I started foundation year. This was weird. We covered stuff that I knew to some extent, but I was so rusty, and I'm going to the foundation year, admitting that I wasn't as good as I was, um, really helped me. And I learned new stuff about new areas of science that I didn't know. I learned about the science that the physics department is doing research in, black holes and such. And it was good. And I got talking, and people were talking like, so you want to do physics? That's nice. What area of physics? And I was like, oh shit. Because there's so many, and the University of Nottingham offers so many, like experimental physics, theoretical physics, astrophysics, theoretical astrophysics, physics with languages, I think, mathematical physics, physics and philosophy, which I didn't know was a thing. I didn't know what philosophy was really at that point. So I looked into all of them because I was like, shit, I need to. This is going to change my life. I need to make the right choice. And I did so well in my exams that I've never did this well in my exams before at uni because I was sort of average, and I was trying to learn and trying to make the most of my situation. And COVID hit, and I was trapped in my room, and I started recording these YouTube videos at that point, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do because the more that I learned about physics, the more I learned about this isn't what I wanted when I was a kid. It's so much like when I was at a hospital at one point, one of the nurses was like, so what do you want to do when you grow up? I was like 10, maybe 11. And I was like, a scientist. Because kids don't know the difference between a physicist, a biologist, and a chemist at that point. There's like, I want to be a scientist, I want to be a mathematician, I want to be like an English teacher, something like that. And that's what I was like. I didn't know about how many different things there are. Do you want to do particle physics? Do you want to do solid state physics? Do you want to do quantum computing? Um, and the more I looked at it, the more bleaker it became. It's very difficult to find experimental physics jobs, at least in the areas that I wanted. Um, there weren't many experimental physics jobs that I wanted in the areas that meant something. I was really interested in particle physics, but some professors told, um, some professors said, "Don't do that. There's nothing going on in that field. There's hardly anything going on. Um, you won't be able to," because I wanted to go further into doing masters and post grad, and they were like, "There's not a lot there." The, I know that there's stuff going on in climate physics and solid state physics, but I'm not interested in that. I was interested in this. And the more research I did, the more that I learned that physics hasn't actually moved forward in 40 years. And that might be shocking, but actually, this is what I do. In the description right now should be a YouTuber called Sabine. I forgot her surname. God damn it. She's a proper physicist. She talks about physics in a more stern, professional, serious manner. It's not like um, I don't know, Elon Musk sort of faffing about. This is serious stuff, and it's something that really connects with me. And she talked about physics isn't moving forward, and it's because like physicists are up their own arse when it comes to the mathematics. They're so like captivated or distracted by the beauty of the maths. They're not thinking about, does this maths actually portray reality? They're in such a weird place. And this was further supported by a 60 symbols video that I saw. And it was, they were talking about the black hole information paradox. And they said, well, we solved it. Look, this maths, it's solved. What more do you want? Yeah. And the guy behind the camera was like, do we know this? Can we experimentally prove it? Have you proved it? Do we definitely know the answers? Have we observed it? And he's like, well, no, but look at the maths. It's so beautiful. I think it's pretty much solved. And I sat there thinking, what the fuck is this shit? If you don't know, if you don't know conclusively, it's not solved. And that's sort of like, what's happened to physics? Like, you shouldn't be talking like this. You need some significant backup, like evidence and observation. And then I started learning about the Large Hadron Collider. When they were building that, or when they were proposing that, they were like, we're going to find the Higgs, we're going to find quantum gravity, we're going to bust dark matter and dark energy, we're going to know it all by building the LHC. And when it was built, they've only, I don't know, it's been built for like 30 years so far. It's been up and running. They found one particle in that, the Higgs. That was proposed like 50 years ago. The likelihood of them discovering anything in the near future using LHC is not great. And that's why there was talk about we need a bigger particle accelerator, huge one. And then physicists now are saying stuff like, and that will bring us data on anti-gravity or anti-particle and quantum gravity, supersymmetry, and dark matter, dark energy. That's what they keep saying because they can secure funding. And of course, they love it. I'm not saying that physicists are misleading people. I mean, I would like the money to go into physics because they do help with medical research. It's undeniable the amount of things like magnetic MRI scanners and the I forgot positron emission scanners things. It's been so helpful, but the likelihood that they'll actually definitely find these answers for these questions is slim to none. In fact, a physicist said, in order to understand quantum gravity, because it works on such a small level. You need a particle accelerator the size of the galaxy almost. That's never going to happen. And even building this new particle accelerator in Europe, that won't be done. If it was proposed today and it got like green lit and funding, it will take 30 years for it to be built. The physicist who'll be there making a big decision on that probably won't be alive to see it switch on. I will probably be retired or close to it. So will you. If you're watching this as this goes up. So fuck it. That really put me off what physics. I had hoped, right, I can't go into experimental physics. I'll go into mathematical physics. Yeah. And I researched that, and there was the maths. In order to do that, you need to know algebra, calculus to a whole new level, with different geometries, and knowing tensor calculus, which is just like, a variable change. Now the scale of the sort of like, imagine the graph paper, like where the points were. Imagine if the field itself is changing, morphing, changing sides, and was of a different geometry. It's sort of like that. I'm simplifying it hugely. And as the summer holidays drew closer, I didn't think I could do that. For one, I want to do experimental physics a bit, but there's probably isn't going to be jobs in the area that I want. And I couldn't do mathematical physics because I'm not mathematically capable on that level. I mean, I did good in the foundation year. Got a first. Subtle brag. But no, I couldn't do that. And over the summer, I was like, what do I do? I'm going to enter physics. I'm not prepared. What am I going to do for a livelihood afterwards? And I started looking into other things, YouTube, for example. And I started looking into satire as an area of YouTube that I can go into. It was I wanted to, but I didn't know how to implement it. I needed funding for that. And as such, sorry, I've been talking for ages. I need to wrap this up. I looked into literature of writing satire, like Juvenal did. Juvenal is a person from Roman times. I'll talk about him more later on. Actually, I'll talk about him right now. He was a writer. He wrote about satire in the ancient Roman period, sort of like 100 BC, 200 BC, something like that. And he was always stuff like, things were better in the olden days of the empire, of the Roman Empire, of the Republic. Does that sound familiar? It sounds like Brexit. The arguments like that. Oh, it's so much better in the good old days. Let's go back to the good old days. And he's got other quotes, and he said stuff like, "Give the you can calm down a mob of people with bread and circus." Let's translate that into modern days. You can distract the population with Netflix and cheap food. Does that sound applicable? There were so many more quotes from thousands of years ago that can still be applied today. Um, One of the last things he said in his final satires is, what you need to have a happy life is a happy man or a happy person in a happy body. Sorry, a healthy a healthy mind in a healthy body. Doesn't that sound like a Instagram post that you could have read yesterday? And it just like blew me away about how amazing it was that we can take stuff from thousands of years and bring it today. And yeah, but it just blew me away. And I started noticing, is there something I could do with this? I went online on the university website. You can do mathematical physics, you could do astrophysics, you could do physics and philosophy. I looked into that. Seemed interesting. It had really good modules about logic and understanding and arguments. That's very useful for me. And then I started digging a little bit more. There's something called classics and philosophy. Over the summer, I also started learning Latin because Juvenal spoke Latin back in the day, and I wanted to read his work in the way that it was written, the way it was intended to be read or like heard, because it would have been oral, I suspect. And I looked into classics, and I didn't believe it. The university teaches Latin, and I decided to look more into this. And and the modules were stuff like learn Latin, learn Greek, learn about the Greek philosophy and Greek history and literature and Roman literature, and learn about the myths and the legends of this ancient time. And this was like so interesting. And a breath of fresh air from physics and all that sort of gunk. And that's why after, I don't know, years and years, like over 5 years, I'm not doing physics or any sort of STEM subject. I'm doing classics. And this is the most fun I've ever had in quite some time. And yeah, I still got some more questions to ask. I still have more things to learn. I need to learn about what my job might be after classics because I'm so new to this. This is a very essay literature orientated course, but I'm liking it. I don't know what it is about the course. It's nothing like the STEM subjects, not really. Like for if you're doing electrical electronic engineering, there's an obvious job that you can go into. Classic? No. I learn new things. I could be a lawyer. I could be an archaeologist. I could be a historian, researcher, teacher. And these are all things that I want to talk about and explore in the next video. So thanks for watching. This video is, as I mentioned, talks about loads of subject. You'll find links to Sabine, the physicist. Check her out. She's interesting and the work is great. And also I want to give a shout out to Aaron Hull. Again, his link is in the description. Go subscribe. There may be a collab coming. Or maybe there isn't. Who knows at this point. Anyway, I wish you the best of luck for your future endeavors. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next